Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Hello, and welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast. I am Courtney, joined by my co-host Travis. And today we're going to hear the story of a former foster youth, Darius Kawewehi. He's going to share his experiences and the events that changed his life in the darkest of times. We'll also talk with him about his insights on being in foster care and what kids in foster care need most. Darius is an entrepreneur and real estate investor residing in Virginia. He's formerly from Hawaii and graduated from Purdue with a degree in mechanical engineering and was commissioned in the U.S. Navy for 8 years. He is passionate about helping others who are in foster care find healing and wholeness and to never give up on their dreams, and has started a Facebook support group called Formerly Fostered, Forever Loved. He is also a brand new board member of America's Kids Belong. Welcome to the podcast, Darius.
No, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you.
It is.
So tell us anything more about yourself personally, your family. We know you have a strong Hawaiian heritage, a lot of pride for Hawaii there. So bring us into that world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so as mentioned, I'm born and raised in Hawaii. And the family that I was eventually adopted into, my dad is native Hawaiian, and also just being in Hawaii itself, I'm surrounded by that culture. You spend years through elementary school, middle school, and high school taking what we call Hawaiian classes. So you're formally taught, the culture and history of Hawaii, and then it just comes up, in your day-to-day life. I mean, a lot of the street signs are in Hawaiian. A lot of words that grow up are in Hawaiian. And then a lot of the traditions and practices in terms of holidays that we celebrate, or just, other non-traditional events are influenced by the Hawaiian culture. So just kind of perpetuated throughout. I do have a few siblings that I'm adopted with that are also of native Hawaiian descent. But I think just generally growing up there, it's just a huge melting pot of various cultures, from all around the world.
Very cool. I was shocked to learn that I think Hawaiians purchase 7 million cans of Spam annually. The Spam connection is strong there. That's a random Hawaiian
Spam is really strong. I mean, if you think like eggs and bacon is like staple in certain parts of North America. I mean, we have our equivalent is Spam, eggs, and rice. We even have that at McDonald's. I mean, it's just like really embedded in our culture out there. We have a dish called spam musubi, which musubi is another word in Japanese for like a rice ball or onigiri. And so we have rice with the seaweed, and then you put spam. So that's a whole dish. So yeah, spam is in our food traditions.
That is,
I love it. Yeah, I mean, we might need that recipe after this.
Yeah.
Very simple.
I've never had Spam. I don't think ever in my life.
You've never had Spam?
Never.
No, I don't recommend eating it straight from the can. Like we all just like pan fry, cut it thin, pan fry it. When we cook it into dishes, a little bit of soy sauce, maybe some teriyaki sauce.
Okay, so
maybe in Hawaii. Got to go to Hawaii, I guess.
Yeah, you got to. I think you got to go.
But here's the funny thing. I mean, the Spam Museum is in Minnesota, which I've been to. So I mean, it's like, the things we're learning on this podcast.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, it became popular because of World War II.
That's right.
Kind of where it got massively distributed, and it just became so popular in Hawaii ever since then. And now it's just continued to hit the shelves.
To hit the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, when we have like a disaster warning, right? During a hurricane or tsunami, you go to Costco, the shelves are empty of all the Spam. Because they tell you to grab non-perishable items, right? The canned food, and Spam is a very popular item. Right after toilet paper. So
yeah, like toilet paper and COVID. Yeah.
Well, there's some Spam trivia.
How often do you get to go
Fun
back
fact.
to Hawaii? Do you go back frequently or?
So ever since getting stationed here in North Virginia back in end of 2021, I have fortunately been back every single year at least once. 2022, I went back for my formal wedding celebration, I guess the public ceremony. So I went back in 2022 once. In 2023, I went twice for two different friends' weddings. One friend from high school, actually from middle school. I've known him for a long time, and then another friend that's from here in Northern Virginia, but he and his now wife met in Hawaii back in 2020. And then I did go back technically once this year on a very extended trip. I did a 2 month trip in Japan, but prior to that, I was in Hawaii for about a week, and then got to Japan, came back to Hawaii for about 36 hours, and came back here. That was kind of my leaving the military trip, sort of celebrating that phase of my life. So luckily, I've been very lucky and fortunate that I've gone back every year since 2021.
That's great. Yeah, good for you to be able to do that.
Very cool. All right. So before we get into more of your story and journey with foster care and then eventually adoption, you had a video that went viral back when you were in high school. This is another kind of a random Darius thing. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, this definitely brings back a lot of memories. I mean, this happened a very, very long time ago. During my freshman year of high school, it was in my English class. Um, my teacher, she, had an assignment for the class where you're going to write a thank you letter to anyone you want, right? It could be anyone in your personal life, right? It could be, family member, mom, dad, sibling. It could be, a teacher, coach, whoever it may be. It could be outside of your family life as well. I mean, if it could be like a historical person or a sports icon. But essentially, the assignment was to write a thank you letter to someone that's affected your life. And you don't necessarily have to give it to that person, right? You just come from the heart. It's just an assignment that she has annually. Each year, she has a freshman class. And so I was given this assignment. I kind of looked at it for a while, and I was like, well, who in my life would I write this letter to, right? And there's like a flood of people I could probably think of. But I ended up choosing to write my thank you letter for my mom that adopted me. And on the backside of this, I didn't really know that my teacher submits students' letters, for a statewide competition. Right? So there's a competition at home called a Thank You Letter competition by Lex Brodies. I'd have to see if it's still going on, but it was going on for a number of years. And I had written my letter. I heard about the competition, but I told her, I was like, "There's a very personal letter, right? I wrote it to mom, so I'd rather just to kind of stay in house and whatnot." So my teacher, she talks to my mom because in her eyes, she's like, "Oh well, it's his mom's thank you letter." So she gets permission from my mom to submit the letter for this competition. And several weeks later, we ended up finding the results of the competition, and it turned out that our high school, because this is a competition like all the high schools in Hawaii, had two winners. One was the state winner, and then one was like a runner-up. And so there's like some commotion going on outside the classroom. All of a sudden, like the local TV news station is kind of marching on into the classroom. All of us are kind of, confused as to like, oh, what's going on right now? And then at some point, one of my friends is like, "Hey, your mom's outside of the classroom. What are you talking about?" And then that's where they announced, they're live on TV that I was the state winner for the thank you letter competition. And then I had to read it live on with my mom there in front of my entire freshman class. Right, this is like the first semester of my freshman year, so like what a welcome to high school. Didn't get to live that down for the rest of high school.
Wow.
But yeah, that was a story. A friend of mine films the recording on his TV when it aired, and then uploaded that to YouTube. So it kind of went viral among my high school and the rest of Hawaii for a little bit there. But yeah, that was my thank you letter story.
Yeah, I gotta
It was
look
a
it
very
up now.
personal letter too. I mean, I was
That's
crying
right.
and everything. Like it was like
You
for
were
me at
just
the
set
time,
up to.
super embarrassed because it was totally unexpected, caught off guard. But I think my mom was very appreciative of it.
Oh my.
Um, funny thing, she actually helped me edit it. She was like my grammar. Like I could always bounce ideas off her because I would like write things out, and then I would get her to like you know do a balance check on my edits, and I'd update it and so whatnot. So she's already seen versions of the letter, but I've never read it to her. So that was an interesting experience. And then
What a
after that
moment.
TV series, they wanted me to at the award show read it live on radio. So I had to like make sure I kept my composure and could
Oh
read
my
it all the way through
gosh.
without joking. So
Wow.
yeah, that was an
Did
interesting
you at least get some spam out of the deal too? Like was there some sort of like
their reward?
They gave me
award.
a free luncheon at the award ceremony. So I guess as a high school student, that's consolation, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh wow. Well,
thanks.
shifting a little bit here. Take us
Yeah.
into your journey of entering foster care and tell us about your experiences just being in care, what that was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of give a high level purview and then just feel free to ask some guiding questions. But essentially, so I entered foster care when I was 4 years old. At the time, I lived with my birth parents. I had an older brother. We were like a year apart, and for many different reasons, CPS took me into care. It was a huge shock for me. I mean, I was so young, I didn't really understand what was going on. I just remember that when my parents would go to work, they would drop me and my brother off at like a daycare facility. And one of these time periods, there was people that were there talking with the staff, and they ended up saying that I need to go with them. That was kind of this discussion. I didn't fully understand what was going on. I mean, I could tell that something was definitely wrong, right? Because my normal cadence of the day is changing. So I just remember that first day, essentially this being a huge swirl of like confusion, right, chaos, being scared, feeling alone, because I was also being taken away from my brother, right, my older brother. So I just had no idea what was going on. So I guess like the theme of the day was uncertainty. So they ended up taking me away in their car, and we get to like a medical facility, and they're doing all these tests. I mean, it felt like I was kind of a lab. They're just doing exams. They're questioning me, doing a bunch of tests, taking a lot of notes. Met with a therapist, and they were going through their examination. I mean, it just felt like pretty torturous with no one really explaining anything. I mean, I guess they could explain as much as they could, right, to a 4-year-old. And after that, I remember, this is probably several hours later, but they told me I was going to go temporarily to stay with a family. I didn't really know what that meant. I don't think this is a normal situation, because I was like, at the time, I think we kind of revert to saying like we want to go home, but like deep down, I know that's not the right answer, right? But I just remember having that feeling of like, I don't know where I am. No, I want to go back to my home. But they ended up taking me to this family's house. They took me in, shown, where I'm going to be sleeping and whatnot. And so like just that whole day was just like a swirl of emotions, uncertainty, not really knowing what's going to happen next, or what is the next day going to look like. Am I going to wake up and, this was all a dream, or, I just thought it was kind of indescribable, honestly. And so after that first day, fast forward a few years, I had to go through multiple years of therapy, multiple years of meeting with lawyers and caseworkers, and sessions with my birth mother, because a lot of the prosecution was going on against my birth father. And I ended up having to testify in court in front of a live jury against my birth father. That was probably like, if I could think of like some of the most traumatic things in my life, aside from what got me into foster care, was like that court case.
Wow.
because it wasn't just the court case, but it was like the years leading up to it, right? I mean, I'm telling you that I was going through therapy sessions at least 2 to 3 times a week, court sessions, like every week for about 2 years, still going to school somehow. And so just kind of that leading up to that culminating event. And then, once like the verdict happened, like there was just like a big wave of relief that, maybe from here on, right, could be the next steps towards healing and having like a certainty in my future, possibly dealing with like everything I was facing internally. And up until this point, I don't think I really faced like head on with, what happened in my life. I mean, I had to say it over and over and like, describe things to the caseworkers and to the judge and my therapist and whatnot. But I don't think I, at that time, dealt with it like internally. And so over the next few years, I've moved to, many different foster homes for various reasons. I ended up moving to about 6 homes and 5 elementary schools between the age of 4 and 13. And I ended up getting adopted when I was in middle school, actually, about a year and a half before that story that I told earlier in high school. And through that time period, I remember this feeling like when I'm going from, especially after the first 2 moves, you kind of get this feeling of like, am I safe in where I'm going to be? Am I going to have the ability to kind of like pause in life and kind of deal with like what's going on, or do I have to constantly be on edge of like, when am I moving next, right? Like, I have to go through this whole process again in school, being a new kid and learning this new environment, and not being the new kid in school. Like, I think for a lot of people, like, especially like, after I've been in the military and met other veterans, children of those families, like, have to deal with like moving every few years. But in this case, it's a different experience where you're like, yes, you're the new kid in your school, in your neighborhood, but also new kid in a family, right? Like people I don't even know, like there's no like sense of stability around me. And so just kind of growing through that, I felt like I had to grow up very quickly and become very independent, look after myself and advocate for myself and my needs, and get to a standpoint where one of the therapists that I ended up becoming very, very close with, I was able to learn to confide in him and really open up and kind of deal with a lot of what was going on with me emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically. I mean, there was some circumstances that I faced when I was in elementary school that caused me to kind of want to give up at times. And so just kind of working through that and just learning how to not realize that, I shouldn't be blaming myself for what happened, but essentially realizing that, the past happened, right? Certain things happened to me that I couldn't really control, and learning where I could focus my time, my emotional energy to kind of heal and focus on my own future and kind of define that for myself, and realize that, despite where I came from, I can still create the future that I envision. So that's I would say like one of the biggest lessons I had to learn as a kid growing up through the foster system.
Well, thanks for sharing that and taking somewhat inside of your story and being vulnerable there. What struck me of just hearing some of that is, as you described, the uncertainty and swirling around and just all of these things, like, and then also at what point in your story did you feel like you could actually even start to think about the future? Would that have been into high school, to where you were just always dealing with just what was in front of you and what might happen next? I mean, future thinking seems like a healing moment, a new chapter. I mean, was that much just later into your life to even really think about the future?
No, that's definitely a great question. I would say I felt like I could have like the actual sigh of relief and kind of step back and reflect on, where I've been in my life and kind of, where I want to steer it. And that happened essentially when I knew I was going to be adopted. The way it happened was kind of convoluted. So essentially the second foster home I was in ended up after several moves and coming back to it, became my last home when I was in middle school. And so once I knew, because like this became a standpoint. I'd gone down a very, very dark path where I was like, kind of giving up on life and getting to a standpoint where, I wanted to turn it around and make a change. There was a time period where I had attempted to take my own life, and the reason I stopped myself, I actually thought of my older brother, right? And the last time I saw him was when I moved into the foster care system. So, at this point, it would have been over, let's see, probably, going on sixth grade, so probably almost 7 years at that point.
Wow.
And I just thought of him because I didn't mention it before, but my brother was born paralyzed from birth, right? So he could never speak. He was fed through a tube, so he never really had the same experiences in life that I did in terms of just being able to like walk and talk and speak your mind and your emotions and eat. And so our life experiences were completely different. So here I was about to give up on my life despite everything that happened to me. And I just felt like it was such a waste of a gift of life, right? Like for these simple things that I took for granted that my brother could never do. So that stopped me. I never want to get to that point again in my life. And I had no idea his condition at this point in time. I was never updated. And so when I had that thought, and the circumstance on where I was at in that particular foster home, I was like, all right, something needs to change. So I talked with my therapist, and I was like, I'm feeling way worse than I was in previous homes. And I want to go back to, this particular home, my second one, that I felt like safe in. I felt comfortable. I had a really good relationship with the other siblings that I met there. I had good friends I made in school. I was doing well in school. I actually really liked learning. That was actually one of my escapes, I feel, if you will, from my current situation. I really loves learning. I liked my teachers. And so he found a way to kind of bring me back, right, to what he called like my home. And it was that standpoint where I felt like, all right, I'm on this path where I'm going to be part of a family that truly accepted me for who I was, that I felt like I was truly a part of their family, right? Like this is not just a monetary transaction, right? This is not just them, trying to be the savior of the kids or anything. But I truly felt like when I was in their family, that year and a half or so, she was like, no matter what we needed, she was there for us. And so once I was able to get transitioned back into that home, and we were going down this path of adoption and what that would look like, that's where I felt like I could kind of break down my walls and my barriers, and then have a little bit deeper connection with my therapist and kind of work through a lot of the challenges I was facing. So I'd say the healing really began after adoption, and then through the rest of middle school and my first couple of years of high school. Like I don't think I ever had the thought as a kid of like, one day I'd, go to college or one day I'd, become a real estate investor, right, a business owner, serving the country. So I think having that plethora of opportunities when I was in high school, like, was truly uplifting. It's truly empowering to feel like I could really make a difference in life.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard you say, and just said it again, that adoption journey, it's not the end all be all itself, but it's more where the journey of healing begins. I think that's just it. Those kids like you needed to feel and truly believe that they belong in a family, in a home. And that's when that healing can begin. I just recently watched the movie Sound of Hope. And, in that that movie as well. You just see that journey when she really, the young girl in the story, when she feels that, like, I really belong here. It's when those barriers are removed and those chains are in a sense broken and they can start to heal in a family. Just like you just described.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time, I don't think I had like this sort of existential thought, reflection in my life. But like, as I've kind of gotten older and had experience, in life, not having to kind of worry about like, what my day-to-day situation looked like. I mean, I think I've had this thought more and more of like, what was that pivotal point in my life? And, just thinking back, I mean, it truly was when I felt that sense of belonging and that sense of comfort and really just that eternal love. I mean, truly having a family that like wants the best for you and like you could feel that they mean what they're saying.
So in another past interview where you and I talked about your story, I remember you bringing up a really fascinating, profound insight around part of your journey of healing was also how big the community around you played a role. Like, I think you talked about teachers, certain people, and I thought that's a really powerful thing to unpack a little bit, because that's an understated part of this for the kids that are in foster care. That, of course, it's equipping foster families, and we want them to do well and to be safe. But that aspect of the greater community and how they play a role. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then your story as it pertains to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, aside from my mom, I really leaned on her a lot growing up. But aside from her support, of course, I mentioned my therapist. When I think back, I mean, I just talked to him late last year, over the holidays, and I realized that I've known him for over 20 years at this point. He's been such a pivotal part of my journey. I mean, I truly look up to him as like a mentor in life. I mean, even after our sessions ended, I mean, he was there for me to kind of find my path towards, college, where I thought, I wasn't going to give myself that chance. I was going to go straight into the military, but he kind of was an advocate for me and, finding different paths and opportunities for me to go to college and to serve in the military, because that was something I was passionate about. He was there for me when I would come home from college, for breaks, and he would just take me out to dinner and we would catch up. I mean, he kept up with me in life. I mean, he was there at my wedding a couple years ago, and so just he was that kind of person for our family for for the entire time that my family has known him. My mom and my other siblings have collectively known him for 30 years. And so, outside of my therapist and his support, I surrounded myself in sports. I did basketball when I was in middle school and my first year in high school at a local community park. And, our high school coach had known our family or not our high school coach, our basketball coach had known our family for a while. He didn't know the specifics, but he knew, we had gone through some challenges, and, he would offer us, rides, and he would offer us, just different ways to kind of show his support. So, just sports was another avenue for us to really express ourselves and kind of have something different than, the challenges we were facing. In high school, I ended up doing cross country and long distance track, and that was just another outlet for me. And, again, my coaches were very supportive. That teacher I mentioned in my freshman year, my English teacher, I mean, she, for the rest of high school and even now, like after college and just kind of going through my journey in the Navy, had always been such an advocate for all of her students, but especially when she got to know me. I just always felt like she was someone I could go to and talk to about anything. And, even though I kind of joke about the fact that she took the letter to my mom, I mean, I think that really just sparked a great relationship with her. So sometimes when I go back to Hawaii, we'll link up and she'll have me talk to her freshman class, because she remains the freshman teacher for English, honors English. And she is always excited to have me back and talk to her students about, my journey through high school and, touch on pieces of kind of where I came from in my past, because she feels that the story and the journey I've been could impact her students and kind of inspire them, as they kind of step into their own paths in high school and kind of look towards their future. And so for me, that's, I'm so humbled to be able to have that support from my teachers, not only her, but other teachers I got close to in high school. I mean, and I think back to some other, people I've met throughout high school. I mean, I felt blessed that I had such a close relationship with my teachers. I mean, I don't think that was the experience for everyone. But I think it was just such an invaluable support that we had. I mean, our teachers truly advocated for us just outside of the classroom. I would see them working, crazy hours until 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, just helping us with different activities. If we need to have extra study time. I mean, they were always in our corners for anything we needed. Not even education related, but if we're struggling with something in life, I mean, our teachers were there for us. So I was truly blessed. And then one of my other advocates that I don't think I would have gotten to where I have been able to accomplish within college and serving in the military was my career college counselor, who truly pushed me to take the leap of faith and just apply myself. Because like I said, I was like, my goal my sophomore year was like, all right, I'll just enlist in the Marine Corps. I'll serve a few years, and at some point in my life I'll go back and I'll get a degree in something. Originally I wanted to be studying psychology so I could also become a therapist like my therapist was to me. So that was kind of my initial motivations. And one of the reasons I wanted to join the military was because there were so many of these people in my life, right? Like my support group that served me for the time that I needed. I felt that, I could serve in the military and serve my country, for specifically dedicated to those people that helped me in life. But when I talked to my career college counselor, she was like, it's very admirable that you want to do that. But I think, there's a lot of potential that, I see in you and that others see in you that I feel like you could really apply yourself, and you have this opportunity to be able to go to college just because of what you're able to do in the classroom and be able to also serve your country, right? She's the one that introduced me to the Navy RTC scholarship. So if it wasn't for her kind of pushing me towards, the path that she knew I wanted to be on, I don't think I would have taken that leap of faith. Wow. So I was definitely grateful. I mean, she made me work for it. I mean, I was doing a lot of the college essays during my summer break before my junior year. But, I ended up finishing all those essays and college applications, and I was pretty much applied for all my colleges, by the end of my junior year. So by senior year, that first semester, I was just waiting for the acceptance letters or rejections, right?
You're right.
And then waiting for the news on the scholarships and whatnot that she had me apply to. So it was incredibly stress-free for me in senior year. And that's just because of that push that she had for me and others, others of my friends that also sought her counsel and her support.
That's amazing.
It is the power of relationships, and just that reminder, how much our relationships matter. We really pour into people. And
yeah,
I love that. I mean, you often think of, as a foster parent, we experience the good and the bad sometimes. We have therapists where I feel like they're just there to do the job, and they're probably overwhelmed, and it's probably a very rough job. But then we have the few, like you're kind of explaining, that just really take it beyond the job, right? Pour into those kids, and that's what those kids in care really need to feel. That they need to feel their importance, and that they are important by many different people.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. Darius, how would you finish the sentence? What kids in foster care really need is...
What kids in foster care really need is unconditional love and support. I mean, if I had to summarize it in a nutshell, I think that encompasses like everything. I mean, any kid. I mean, not just a kid in foster care, but I feel like any youth that's growing up in life, right, regardless of their circumstances, just requires unconditional love and support. And everything that kind of comes with that, right? And just that feeling of security that they can truly confide in, their parent, their support system, be it a therapist, a teacher, right? To be able to confide in, what they're feeling, what they're thinking, truly without any repercussions, and just having that space to be able to do that. So I think that's how I would describe it. There's many different avenues I can kind of take this conversation with. If I had to summarize it, that's what I would say.
So looking back, it sounds like a lot of the foster homes you were in weren't necessarily healthy or good for you. There certainly was the one that you talked about. And do you think looking back that was definitely a thing that you felt like you were you knew you were missing at the time? You just couldn't share. Like there would have been a consequence to you sharing honestly. Like there wasn't the freedom, the space to kind of be you and just say like, hey, this is really hard. I wish I had my foster parent that I could confide in. I mean, it sounds like that just was a missing piece maybe to a lot of your journey in there.
Yeah, it was certainly a missing piece. And in terms of repercussions, I don't think it would have been like a repercussion in the sense that I would have gotten like swore at or physically beaten or anything, but more so like even if I were to say anything, right, in some of the homes I was in, it would fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't really feel like, in some of the homes I was in, I could truly just open up about what's going on. There were some siblings I've gotten close to in different homes that, we could talk to each other, right? Because we've gone through, similar experiences and we could relate on some level, but even just talking to each other, I mean, I don't think that's always the right level of support. It definitely helped me get through some difficult times in those homes, but we truly, all of us just needed, a level of love and care and belonging, right? I think that was a key piece that I kind of left off in the previous question, but just that feeling of belonging. And there were some of the homes where it felt, and this is crazy to think of, like being a kid and having to stop, like transactional, right? Like, because when you become a foster parent, there is a monetary aspect that comes with that, right? And then it just depends on if you're a quote unquote special needs kid or whatever the other categories that they label us. And that was also something that got to me. Like I'd hear all the labels, right? Like I'm in these conversations, and we're just labeled different things. So it did feel transactional at times. There's a dollar amount that gets associated with it. I hear, my different foster families kind of argue among their spouses about certain things, and like all of us kids, we're hearing the entire conversation, so it's not like it's secretive or anything. So it felt at times incredibly transactional. Like I was just a dollar figure. I was just money to pay for bills and whatever it may be. Now, not to say that they weren't like feeding us or I didn't have a roof over my head. I mean, I was incredibly grateful for the fact that I could live somewhere, wasn't on the street. But I mean, to feel like I'm just a stranger in someone's home and just a paycheck. But I never felt that in the home that took me in when I was there, my second foster home, and the home that eventually adopted me. Never felt that. My family was willing to, sacrifice any monetary gain in order to take me in. I mean, she was willing to just, hey, I don't need any of that. He is my, he is part of this family. And so I think just realizing the differences, right? I felt like, yeah, this is a family that truly cares about who I am as a person, right? They care about my personal well-being.
Yeah, and you're part of them, part of the family, like you said.
Yeah, when we train foster families, we always talk about there's a difference between a kid being safe in your home versus the kid feeling safe. And it's the same thing with what you're saying. They don't just be told, oh, yeah, you're heard. Oh, you belong. Oh, you're part of the family, versus really feeling that and helping the kids feel
I think I think when kids go through this, right, kids and youth, there's like an intrinsic ability we have where we can sense those things, right? It's not something you're taught, right? It's something that you go through and you just understand when you're in the moment. And other challenges that we face, that I face. I've been the oldest child, the youngest child, the middle child, among many different ranges of uh, of siblings. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, you know, ranging from 10 to 12 siblings to, being the only child. I mean, I think that's just a unique set of life experiences. And at times, being in homes where, I was among a family that had, natural born children and being, one of the foster children. So just kind of being able to feel that difference, like the fact that there's a difference, right? And so just, it's definitely uncomfortable. It's unsettling. So just something that I've had to go through, and I'm sure, there's countless many others that are out there that have felt this as well. And so I think that's another challenge that we kind of face when, we're in the system.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I never actually thought of that until now, of where, we talk about with adoption, it's common to talk about disrupted birth orders and kind of from the parents' view. But for the kids in foster care who, like in your case, are bouncing around to homes where you're all of a sudden the oldest, now you're youngest, now you're middle, like that other element of like, how do you even cope and deal with even just that? I mean, that's a really, another challenging hurdle.
Yeah, it was one of the reasons why I kind of went down like the darkest part of my life. I came from a home where I was the, call it one of the youngest, and all of a sudden I'm like the oldest, but still being in elementary school, but having to take care of like a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. I think there was a 4-year-old as well, right? And I'm not even a preteen yet. And we had a parent that had work that was very late at night, so I'm dealing with, all right, I gotta cook up some food, feed the kids, get them showered, put them to bed. And I'm still like, I gotta do my homework before every day. It was just a lot to do with it. I mean, I didn't have older siblings to teach me how to do that. I've never been in this situation before. I was kind of just lost this responsibility inherently because I was the oldest kid in the house. And so that was just an incredibly difficult challenge, and still dealing with my own, like, I haven't even faced my inner emotions, right? Like, this was already my 4th or 5th foster home and 4th elementary school that I was going to, and the second move in like 6 months. So it was, I think it's just a challenge that's unique in this sort of situation. So I don't know how to tell someone, like, how do you deal with that, right?
Right.
I think it would come with having a strong support network, which is not something you could always advocate for, right? It just depends on, it really just depends on who your caseworker is and who your therapist is, and kind of starting with that support system.
Yeah.
Wow, Darius, thank you for being with us today. And kind of as we close out, it's just, you've got a wealth of information, but one thing also is you're passionate about helping others like you who have come out of foster care and give them that space to process and grieve and find that hope and healing in the community amongst each other. Tell us a little bit more about the community that you have with former foster youth and what you started as Formerly Fostered, Forever Loved.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that. So I had this thought when I got moved to Northern Virginia, right, to move. I wanted to dive down this path of business and entrepreneurship. And one of my mentors had told me, before you kind of go down this path, you want to just set your vision for your future, right? What is something that you want to strive for, that no matter how hard this path gets, that you will continue working down this path, right? Something bigger than yourself. And my thought was, I want to find a way where I can impact within this community, right? And so one of my visions was to get to a point where I can create a mentorship for current and former foster youth to learn about business, about financial education, about financial freedom, right? And then health and fitness. And so also, this vision of mine is, several years down the line. And so I was challenged with a different mentor of mine of, is there something you can do in your current life situation to impact this community that you're very passionate about? And, a thought was, well, really one way that I could do that is just using my own voice, and being able to be an advocate for others and kind of share my story, and just create a community where we can gather. And so back in the end of 2022, I created a Facebook group called Formerly Fostered Forever Loves. And it's truly just a space for us to, kind of collaborate and just share, different, thoughts we have about our experiences and just, our life journey. Just a safe space for us to gather and just, feel connected and feel loved and realize that, we're not alone in this journey in life.
It's a great name. I love that name so much.
It's a great name. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, I know. We typically take in teenagers now, and when we have a teen in our home, that's what we try to get for them, is somebody that, it's one thing for us to say, I haven't experienced foster care. I've experienced as a foster parent, but I don't know what you're going through. But if I can find them somebody like you that can walk alongside life with them and be with them, it just gives them that sense of somebody that they think really gets it and know, we can talk eye to eye, we can look eye to eye, we can talk about these real hard things that they may not want to talk to about with me or with somebody else, and feel that connection. So I'm sure that is just such a safe place. There's
a life on the other side, right? A life on the other side of healing.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Well, again, Darius, we just thank you. We thank you for all that you do for the fostering community, for the former foster youth, now being a board member at AKB.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you on board. And
thank you so much.
Yeah. Listeners, if you want to check out other things, hear more about Darius, we have things in the show notes, links in the show notes to previous interviews and webinars that Darius has joined us on. And we always love to hear your voice.
I appreciate it so much. I mean, I'm just thankful for the community to see that, there's people out here that are, giving a platform for people to raise their voice and to advocate for others and to just show that, we're here on this life journey together, and, we can, lend a helping hand where needed.
Yeah, that's well said. And also thank you so much for your service in the U.S. Navy. I also think about how what Courtney said of you now as a board member with a national organization in the space of expanding into new frontiers in foster care, to have your leadership and your lived experience in the foster care system. It's going to be amazingly huge. So yeah, thanks again so much for joining us today and lending your insights.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired about what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure a family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.